Welcome everybody to the 9/11 Tribute Museum's virtual My 9/11 Story program. I am your host, Kwaku Farrar. Today, on the day of this recording, it is actually the 28th anniversary of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And you will be hearing a personal story from Dave Hood, who has a personal connection to 1993 as well as 9/11. And he'll be sharing his story for you on this program. If you have any questions for Dave, please feel free to add them to the comment section, and we'll make sure that we get those questions over to Dave for you. So without any further ado, I'll give the floor up to Dave to share his story. And yeah, enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Hood, and I am a retired attorney who worked for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And I'm going to share my thoughts on the 1993 bombing, World Trade Center bombing. Today is February 26, 2021, and the February 26, 1993 bombing is now, as a result, 28 years since that bombing occurred. And on that particular day, today is a Friday, and that day was actually a Friday as well. On that particular day, I actually was in the law school library. I was actually in law school at that time. And when the bombing occurred, I remember getting a phone call, speaking to one of my colleagues, and we had thought that it was a transformer that had blown out. As it turned out, 6 people died from that incident, and 4 of them were my colleagues. What really happened is these terrorists, it was Al Qaeda, they had planted a truck bomb with 15,000 pounds of fertilizer in the basement level of the World Trade Center. At the time when the World Trade Center was constructed, it was a unique construction. The building was constructed in the form of what we now know as a tube. In other words, it was built on an exoskeleton rather than an endoskeleton. And so the structure it didn't have columns, internal columns, as normal buildings would. And these terrorists unfortunately didn't know that, at least fortunately didn't know that. And when they planted this truck bomb in the basement level next to a wall, they assumed that it was one of the columns and they expected the building to topple over. As it turns out, it was the lunchroom for our staff, and 4 of them were having lunch at the time. One of them happened to be the secretary who was 8.5 months pregnant. Actually, that was her last day. And so she and her unborn baby, her name was Monica Rodriguez Smith, she died, as well as my other colleagues. When I graduated from law school and went back to the Port Authority, by the way, I had left the Port Authority, taking a leave of absence to go to complete my law degree. When I went back, I was assigned to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. That became one of the key cases I started working on. And what we discovered as a result of the work that we were doing was the bombing caused substantial damage, but as I mentioned, only 6 people actually killed, fortunately. Most of the damage were from people who were inhaling the smoke as they walked down the stairwells, the smoky stairwells of the tower, because the 2 towers became like actual chimneys, basically. So a lot of the injuries were from smoke inhalation, from people actually just walking down these lengthy stairwells to get out to the buildings. So my task became handling many of these lawsuits. Over the years, we settled most of the lawsuits and so forth. And actually, in 2001, The Port Authority, which was the owner of the building, determined that it was best to get out of the real estate business. And they leased the entire building to a gentleman, Mr. Silverstein, 6 weeks before 9/11. So this was in July. This happened in July of 2001. When they did so, the law department and myself as a lawyer became involved in the lease agreement to some extent. We had to work with our colleagues who handle leases and so forth, mainly because of the lawsuits that were still on paper from 1993. So as a result, on the morning of September 2001, I was actually in my office on the 68th floor, preparing for a meeting with one of my colleagues. Her name was Gina Drucky. She handled the insurance issues related to the lease. So I was going to have a meeting with her that morning. And I remember just before 9 o'clock, I went into the bathroom before going on to the elevators. And there was this loud sound, and the building felt like it was going to topple over, but it didn't. I thought maybe it was a crane or something that had fallen. I didn't know what it was. And when I got out of the bathroom, all the phones were ringing. Everybody had already left the floor, and the secretaries were around. But the phones were ringing, and I answered. One of the phone calls was from a police department. They said that the building was hit by a plane. I remember thinking about all the lawsuits that would come from that. So I started focusing on doing my job. And one of the other calls I got was from one of my colleagues who could see the building on fire. And he said, what are you doing? The building's on fire. And without missing a beat, I told him, I said, well, a plane hit the building. So you should know better. We have work to do. And I remember thinking to myself about the 1993 bombing, and especially about the fact that so many of the entries were from the smoke inhalation. And I decided at that time that the best thing to do was to remain in my office rather than go down into the stairwell. I decided I was going to listen to the news at least to hear what's going on. And just before 9 o'clock, the alarms went off. And I realized that once the alarms went off, that was not a drill. So, and we were taught what to do once the fire alarms went off. So I went into the stairwell, obviously. I could see all the people around, all the people there and the firefighters and everything. And so I started to make my way down from the 68th floor. I got down to the mezzanine level, and I was going to go outside. One of my colleagues stopped me because the potential of being crushed by people jumping off the building from the upper floors. So I went down the escalator to the concourse level. And when I got down, I could see all the damage done. I remember thinking this was worse than 1993, the damage that we had in 1993. And so I remember as I was walking past 5 World Trade Center, which was one of the buildings connected to the 2 towers. I remember hearing this loud snap, and then someone saying, "Take cover." And all of a sudden, it felt like this giant tidal wave or tsunami engulfed me. And it's flying like if I had on a carpet or something. All the walls seemed to be coming in, and then all of a sudden everything just went dark. And the next thing I remember hearing all the voices and people, it was surreal. And then I saw this bright light. So I thought I was dead. And heard this voice on the bullhorn say, "If you see the light, come to the light." And what it was the rescuers. Unbeknownst to me, the South Tower had just collapsed, and the rescuers were looking for survivors. And I got up and made sure I could walk, felt my legs are still okay. And I was about to walk off. I heard this voice. There's a lady next to me. And she said, and I tried to help her. And she said, "Don't touch me, I'm burning up." Her body felt like she was badly damaged, or badly injured, I should say. And I felt helpless. I said, I have to find a way to help this person. And my eyes felt like it had sand in them, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. So I felt like I had to find a way to get out because I felt like my life was in danger. So I started following the rescuers with the lights, and I was able to make my way outside the building. When I got out, it looked like a war zone after a bomb blast. Everything was just mangled. So I made my way to the hospital, which was a couple of blocks away. And when they saw me, they took me in, flushed my eyes and everything, and said that at least for that moment, I was okay. But I had to wait for X-rays and so forth. While I was waiting, all of a sudden everything went dark. That's because the North Tower had just collapsed. So I got out and I made my way outside and started walking uptown. And I could see on people's faces as they watched, as if they were looking at a zombie or something. So I looked back to see what they were looking at. And then I realized that the towers were gone. And that's when it hit me that I had just survived the collapse of the Twin Towers. And realized that I had to get to another hospital. So I made my way to another hospital, and I was treated for my injuries. And luckily, as you can see, I survived. So that's my memory of 1993 and 2001. And I thank you for your time. And I'm glad to be alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing your personal, 1993 connection, which I actually personally didn't know the details of until today.
Oh, really?
Okay. As we wrap up today's program, we just want to once again acknowledge that today is the 28th anniversary of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And we want to personally acknowledge John DiGiovanni, who was 45 and perished in the attack, Robert Kirkpatrick, Stephen Knapp, Bill Macco, Wilfredo Mercado, Monica Rodriguez Smith, as well as her unborn child. And as Dave mentioned, she was due to go on maternity leave very shortly before the attack.
That was her last day. Yeah.
The day before. So we want to make sure to acknowledge them, their families, as well as all the other survivors, the responders, as well as the rebuilding workers who came down to, rebuild the tower after the attack, as well as those who, found the perpetrators of the attack, who are all serving life sentences. So we thank you for watching. Once again, if you have any questions for Dave, feel free to add them to the comment section, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered for you. So Dave, once again, thank you so much, and we will see you all next time.